Now, prime time is what we call high energy time. And in order to get some of the more complex and difficult tasks done, we have to be wide awake. We have to have our best game on. And that's our prime time. Everybody has prime time. Zach in the back here, there, I can promise, his prime time is not morning. A lot of it has to do with age, but a lot of it has to do with the way our body clock works and also what we get used to. First of all, let me ask this. How many people's prime time here is in the morning? Okay. So 3 out of 3 of us right here, right now, yes. All right. Most people's prime time is in the morning. University of Michigan did a study on prime time, and the majority of people in the workforce, their prime time is from 7 to 11 in the morning. A lot of people come in early to get things done. Usually you have your most energy first thing in the morning. So what we want to do when we have the most of our energy is we want to spend that time doing those more complex and difficult tasks. See, a lot of times we come in the morning and we do busy work. Let's sit down and decide what we're going to do today. Let's see what other things have come up so we can readjust our calendar. Let's answer our email. Email's fun. Let's go talk to a couple of people over at the water cooler. Just get ourselves ready for work. We're wasting all of that prime time. And one of the biggest wastes of prime time is meetings. How many of you have meetings in the morning? I go into so many companies and their meetings are 9 in the morning to 10 or 8 to 10, if their meetings are even an hour. Meetings are the #1 time waster in any office, and we'll come back to that in just 1 minute. But what is huge here is most people will hold meetings in the morning. They're bringing all these people in from different departments or from their organization who are, again, have their highest energy. And do we need high energy for meetings? We really don't, because we feed off each other. There's synergy. We need that high energy for when we're working on those items that are very, very difficult, complex, that we don't want to do. Think about your high payoff items for just 1 minute. High payoff items are usually those items that are more difficult to deal with. They're usually the ones we don't want to do. What's a high payoff item for me as a trainer, as a speaker? Well, that high payoff item would be building relationships. Staying in touch with my clients, making contacts with new clients. That's really difficult to do sometimes. Picking up the phone and keeping in touch is very difficult to do. So when I come into my office in the morning and I am ready to start work, I need to spend that first part of the morning where my energy is the highest, doing that my highest payoff item, which is keeping in touch with clients. So I do that. I come in when I'm not training or when I'm not speaking or consulting. I come in the morning and I do that. I don't want to. It's much more fun to answer my emails. But I don't even let myself look at my emails until I do 2 hours of high payoff work. That's my reward. I get to look at my emails afterwards. Who's sending me some good stuff? So it's very important to identify your prime time. Now, mine's morning. If it was not morning, then maybe I would be making my phone calls in the afternoon. You have to know what your high payoff items are, and then what you have to do is know when your prime time is so you spend that time doing that. Now, we were talking about meetings being the #1 time waster. Do you know what the #2 time waster is? Most people say interruptions or distractions or email, yeah. There's lots of them. When I do a full-day seminar on time management and managing multiple projects and deadlines, we'll talk about every one of these and how do we deal with it. The interruptions, your boss, the email, the telephone, other people's pressing problems, equipment failure, software failure. Have you ever gone in and all of a sudden your computer's not working? That could kill a day or two. Those kind of things we have to deal with. They're definites. It's just how do we deal with it. The other day my computer died. Okay? It was very, very frustrating because everything is in my computer. And I had to go out and get another computer. And so first I tried to fix it. Then I called my son Zach and I said, help me. And he tried to walk me through it. And he says, go get another computer, it'll be faster. So I went out and got a Mac, which is great. I love my Mac. But there was a learning curve. So I lost 2 days of very important high payoff items just playing with the equipment failure. And so what I did on both of those days, I have to let you know because I am a time management geek. I didn't start working. When I got it in the morning, I saw my computer wasn't going. I put it aside for 2 hours, did my high payoff phone calls, then came back and dealt with my computer. Now, I got nothing else done the rest of the day, but at least I worked on my high payoff items in the morning. So identify your prime time, work on that. And the second one, though, I just want to tell you, is not interruptions. That all the interruptions are the rest of the 10, number 1 through 10. The second one doesn't have a name, but I gave it a name, and it's called blurting. Let me see if I can give you an example of what I mean by that. How many of you sit at your desk every once in a while and you hear somebody go, and you look up, what's wrong? Is everything okay? Or even if you don't ask that, don't you think to yourself, oh, I wonder what's wrong with Sue over there. Is everything okay? That person who did that sighing wasn't meaning to interrupt you, but that sigh did interrupt you. I used to run a call center. That was one of my businesses. It was an international business association, and we sold our memberships through a call center. And I'd get people who would have a really good conversation with somebody to be a member, and then in the last minute, the person decided not to buy, and they would slam down their phone. And everybody would look around. What happened? Waste of time, distraction, interruption, right? Blurting is something that people do in an office and they don't realize they're interrupting other people. Second biggest time waster. So one of the things you might want to think about doing is try to cut down your blurting. What I did in my office is I actually had a blurting jar. Now I'm aging myself. Similar to the swear jar. Remember when people swore you used to have to put a quarter in? Well, what I did was I had a blurting jar and everybody had to put $1 in, $1. And at that point, I said, what we'll do is we'll give half to charity, and the other half at the end of the month we'll have a pizza party. I want you to know, I had 257 people working for me, and this was 80 people on my day shift that I did this with. And at the end of a month, we had enough money to give half to charity and take 80 people up to Raleigh, North Carolina. That's 2.5 hours away in limousines. Go to dinner and go to the theater and take the limousine back again. That's how much blurting was going on. See, when you're given $1 at a time, you don't notice it that much. But when you finally look at how much money was there, people all of a sudden started saying, I wonder how much money I gave. And then what happened is when they were just about to blurt, they'd say, is this worth the buck? Or should I keep my feelings to myself and tell people about it later? Well, what ended up happening was most people, sometimes you have to blurt. Sometimes it's just one of those days. But mostly people kept it to themselves, and it really cut down on all of the interruptions that we had in our office. So we want to identify our prime time. We want to make sure we don't have our meetings during that prime time. So find out what your office, everybody's prime time is, and then try to work your meetings around the majority of the people's prime time. And then also try to cut down on the interruptions so that that prime time really works. Now I'll give you Ivy League gave a couple of silver bullets to Charles Schwab. The first one was make your to-do list, prioritize it, and then work on those high payoff items. But the second silver bullet that Ivy League gave Charles Schwab was how to work during your prime time. And that was, he called it productivity time or focus time. And he said this should be the time where you actually have no interruptions. You close your door. If you're in a cubicle, you put on maybe a sound canceling headset. This is, you put a sign up saying in conference. This is the time where nobody is allowed to interrupt you. And he suggested to Charles Schwab that he have 2 hours every day of this productivity time. And Charles Schwab said, look, I'm the boss. I'm the go-to person. I can't do that. People need me. If I'm not there to answer their questions, if I'm not there to do the work, what's going to end up happening is I'm going to hold them up. And they're working for me, and I'm paying them, and I don't want to do that. Now, if you think about all those, Stephanie, you mentioned all the questions that people have that come to you. mostly, if you're not there to answer those questions, can't they do find the answers out. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah, they figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out on your own. It's easier to come and ask you, though, right? And that's what happens is we make it so easy to let people interrupt us when they can usually find the answers out themselves. So if we are tied up in our productivity time or focus time and nobody can get to us, no phones, no email, our door is shut if we have a door, we have those sound canceling headsets on, nobody can disturb us. I used to say to my staff, because I had it every morning from 8 to 10 when I worked, and I said, do not bother me unless the place is burning down and I've got to evacuate. And at first, it was very difficult because it's only, I just need a quick question. It's just I need a one-word answer. And I found if I answered it, I was encouraging them, and they'd come back and back and back. I found if I refused to answer and say, this is my productivity time, I'm not to be interrupted, what would happen is they'd find the answer out themselves.